How you doing this morning? So today's project, we're going to be building a cart for my heavy hitch. So what I've been doing is I have a couple of cinder blocks and I have a 2x6 and a couple of 2x4s that I usually set up. And that seems to be about the right height. And I'll just come up and set the heavy hitch down on it, the 2x6, catches on the hook flanges here on the receiver, and it keeps it balanced. And I noticed, when I first tried it, I noticed it kept it really stable, didn't allow it to fall. So the hardest thing I have with that is it's trying to move it around to get the tractor on it. So when I dump it off, if I have something else in the way, I might have to move things out of the way to get back in at the right angle to pick the heavy hitch back up. And it'd be really nice to have it on a cart that I could take and then wheel in and move it over and set it off to the side. I know Heavy Hitch does sell a cart. It's really nice. It actually slides in a 2-inch receiver, so you can basically pick the metal cart up, slide in the receiver, put the pin in, and then lower it down, and it just wheel it wherever you want. But I like making stuff, so I figured I could see what I could do. And as usual, I try to use what I have on hand to make stuff. If I have to go and buy extra things, I will, but I usually like to try to use what I have on hand. Scraps, leftovers from other projects, etc. So I think I got something designed that's going to work. I'll walk you through the process as I go through it, and we'll see what we make out with. But it all starts here with the base of this is going to be one of these carts. It's a 1,000-pound capacity. I'll bring it in so you can see it. It's a 1,000-pound capacity. I picked this up at Harbor Freight. I got on sale. I think I got it for like $8. But forecasters, it's going to be wide enough, I believe, that's going to hold everything together. So the concept is going to be I'm going to run two 2x6s lengthwise, drill in and screw down into the dolly to attach them so it's going to stay stable on there. Then I'm going to have 3 2x6s mounted this way, screwed to those to bring the height up a little bit. And that's pretty much what I had sitting on the cinder blocks. But what I really want is I want to make this a little more stable because I'm going to be wheeling it around. So I had the idea what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the distance between here. I'm going to cut a 4x4 and then a couple 2x4s that I'm going to screw on top of that. What they should do is they should come down and make contact and actually just lift these weights up. Just maybe like between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. It should lift those weights up. But that'll take the weight off, so the weights will be sitting on the 2x4. The rest of the rack will be sitting kind of right in the middle. I want to line it up again so it's kind of centered over. The mass is centered over the rack, and I think that'll keep us stable enough to allow me to wheel it around on the cart. So we'll get some dimensions and we'll start cutting things out. All right. So the next step is we're going to get some dimensions on this. I already measured across from inside to inside on the heavy hitch is 25 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my first 2 2x6s. We're going to get them mounted to the cart, and then we're going to go from there. All right, so we got our 2x6s here. We're going to cut the 2 pieces out. Again, I measured my heavy hitch 25 inches across. So we're going to measure up here, mark off 25 inches. Now I'm using pressure treated here, just because that's what I happen to have laying around. If you're going to happen to leave yours outside where it's going to be getting wet, you're going to obviously need to use pressure treated, but if it's going to be inside, feel free to use any kind of 2x6 you want. Like I said, I just happen to have this pressure treated laying around left over from another project. All right, cut the second one out. Second piece, same as the first, 25 inches. Now we're going to go drill and get these screwed down to the cart. All right, so we got our cart here. We got our 25-inch 2x6s. Going to get these set on the cart. I'm just lining them up right with the very edge of the outside of the cart. Now, you can take this carpet off. I thought about it. I don't think it's going to hurt anything to leave it on there. We'll see. Right, just kind of eyeballing the edge there. Grab my tape measure. Let's go ahead and check in from the ends to make sure we're pretty close. A little over 3.5 there. Just a little over 3.5, almost exactly center. All right, so now we're going to take our drill here. Now, again, pressure treated. A lot of times when I'm drilling this stuff together, especially in the middle of the board, I don't necessarily pre-drill the holes, but because I'm going into the hardwood that's in these dollies, I'm going to want to make sure I'm going to drill a couple pre-drilled holes. You want to try to hit in the middle so you don't hit one of the bolts that's coming through and mounting the casters to it. All right, we got our hole drilled. Drill down through and attach this. I'm using 2.5 inch screws. It'll give me an inch plane here. I definitely don't want to go through. I just want to get it enough to kind of hold it down through to the board. So again, 2.5 inch screws, deck screws. Just countersunk them a little bit. The next screw in. There we go. So again, we're really just trying to make sure the 2x6s stay in place. The weight of the hitch is really going to be pushing down on this. If it's going to tip it all and try to pull these things off, those 2.5 inch, 3 inch screws aren't going to do anything. The whole cart's going to come over. Just here, I have 8 of these, so that's about 336 pounds of weight, plus the hitch itself, which I think weighs around 50 pounds, I want to say, give or take. So you're talking, 375 pounds, 375 pounds in that area. So, but yeah, so the next step is going to be, we're going to mount our 3 pieces of 2x6. So I'm going to want to take and I'm going to measure this across. We're just at 12 inches, which is the dimension of the cart. So we got that lined up on the edge. So you can see this is going to slide underneath here. This should come just to the edges. And what I want to do is I want to have one underneath here. This is the one I've been using. You can probably see the rings in here from when I set it down on it. So we're going to reuse that piece, but I want this one to set here. Again, centered. And then these ones I'm going to want to have centered from here to here. So you figure there's almost 10 inches from here to here. This is 5.5 inches wide, so about 2 inches in from the end. A little more than 2 inches in from the end, so I'm going to want to mount these ones. This one will be here. That one's already almost the length. So that'll give me a good mount, and then we're going to come and we're going to attach a 2x4 to here, so it's going to almost catch right next to this. And then we're going to put two 2x4s on top of that, and that's going to be the part that's going to support this weight. But the next step is I'm going to go cut these 3 2x6s to 12 inches, and we're going to come back and attach them to the cart. All right, so we got our 3 pieces of 2x6 cut. Going to screw these down. I'm just going to throw 1 screw in each one, basically just to keep these in place. So you don't want to measure first, double check, I already did, but should be 9 3/4. 9 3/4, so it's centered. All right, put the next one in. Kind of felt like it went in easy. Okay. So there's a hole there. I want to make sure I didn't go through it, but all right, that feels pretty solid. So now the placement of these next ones, again, what I was doing was I figured from the edge of this, because the 4x4 has got to miss this, so I'm going to want to come in just a little bit. And I guess you really have about 9 inches, it looks like. Just about 9 inches across from here. So from the edge of this to where this is going to come out, we're going to have about 9 inches here. So minus 5.5 is going to be 3.5 inches. So if we want to have that a little bit to the outside, I'm going to come in 1 3/4 inches. That would be 3.5. So I'm going to come in 1 3/4 inches from either side. That'll allow me to have that really centered over where I want it. So again, just coming in 1 3/4 inches. Got a couple more screws. that's going to be the base piece we're going to have. Again, as I said, this measurement is really about 9 inches. If we come out just a little bit, I want to give some clearance from there. So I'm going to want to cut, the next piece is going to be to cut the 4x4s I think I'm going to cut them 8.5 inches. I just want to give myself enough clearance. I don't want this to be rubbing too close. So we're going to cut these 2x4s at 8.5 inches, or 4x4. Again, you can see there's an old post I had in the barn. I'm just going to cut 2 sections of this off that are going to kind of sit right at the top of these 2x6s. They're going to be, I'm going to cut them 8.5 inches. So what I did is I took the measurement from this ring, the inside of it, to the outside of the hitch, and I added about maybe 3/4 of an inch to get it so that I want to know that distance from the edge of this all the way over there, so I can have this 4x4 sit here to, again, hold these weights up. So for me, that's going to be, what do you say again? Keep talking, forget. About 8.5 inches actually. So that's going to give me not quite 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to 8.5 inches. I'm going to cut this right. So we've got the 4x4s cut out. Again, reclaim wood. Scrape some of the stuff off of there. But these are going to be mounted basically here, pretty much like that. We're going to screw these down, attached to it, and then we're going to have one here. It's going to come all the way out. You want to line it up right with the edge of this. Another one here. That'll leave just enough room for this to drop down with a little bit of play on each side. Now, as far as where to position these front to back, so I took and I measured my heavy hitch from the front until kind of where it would be centered underneath this weight, and it's just about 8 inches from the front of this to where I want the back of that 4x4. And I really want that weight centered on here. So since that's 8 inches, we have 12 inches total. That means we want to come in 2 inches from, 2 inches from the back side. We're going to come in about 2 inches, and that's right where we're going to want to have that. Left my pencil over there by the saw. That's right where we're going to want to have these mounted. So these are going to come up and be mounted just like that. And to have these here just like that. So again, that's how these are going to be mounted. Now, of course, I just realized, going back a step, you can learn from my mistakes. I really need to be able to screw. I don't want to have to screw all the way down through this. I don't really want to toenail it. So I'm gonna, since I have this marked, I'm gonna pull these 2 screws back out. I'm gonna put this back on, flip it over, set the 4x4, and then I'm gonna drill down into it there. So that'll allow me to take and then attach this up through and have a good solid grab on it. So pack these out quick. So if you're following along at home, don't do that. All right. So, and we're gonna want to be, what did we say, 1 3/4 here? Double check. Yep, 1 3/4. So let me set this down. Have this up. So we're going to want to be 2 inches from the end. And then we're going to want this side to be 1 3/4 over. So that should give us just about where we want to be. So we're going to take and we're going to pop the screw down here again, just to kind of keep this in place. Actually, I'm going to throw 2. My screw closer to where I want it. Check the measurements. 2 inches, 1 3/4. Check on both sides. So 2 inches, 2 inches. Okay, we're good. They're close enough anyways to being good. So a couple in here is all. Great. All right. So now that we got that in there, we're going to come back around. We're going to put this back on. So 1 3/4. Front to back. All right. Screw in. Just drill that down a little bit, make sure it catches good. Now this one I'm going to have to drill a new hole here. because I covered up the one with a 4x4, but it'll work. As I stated, these are just in there really to hold this. The weight of this is really going to keep this down. The screws that you're using are kind of not exactly inconsequential, but just kind of holding everything in place. All right. So that's going to give us our good base, like I said. Again, this side here, this is going to come down so the bar and everything is, the bar all the way across is going to go across the 3 2x6s. And then this flange is going to be allowed to sit right in here to kind of steady that. I've had it sitting just on 2x6s on cinder blocks, and that works well. I have a hard, like if I can try to tip it, it always wants to rock back. So I feel fairly confident with this that it's not going to want to tip over. However, I did want to have a little bit of extra stabilization, which is why I said, you know what, if I can build something up here for these weights to sit on. So basically I measured, took one of the higher weights and said, all right, well, he's about, not quite 6.5 inches. So I figured 3.5 inches with a 4x4 and two 2x4s is another 3 inches at 6.5. So that should just catch these weights and give it enough where it's starting to push up on them, but not a whole lot. I don't want it to bind if it's trying to push them up, but I want it to actually, the weight to be sitting on it, so when it sits level, it'll be good. So I'm gonna need 2 2x4s for each side. So I'm gonna go cut 4 2x4s, 8.5 inches long. And then we're gonna get those. All right, so we got our 2x4s cut off. So again, same length, you just want to line them up over the top of the 4x4s. This is going to give us the depth we need. I'm just going to throw a couple in here. Hopefully I don't hit the ones underneath it. Come on. I'm trying to put these ones in a little bit from the last ones, and I'll put the next ones out a little bit. And you'll did notice when I pushed over here, it seemed to tip. But again, I'm outside the wheel base pushing on one side of it. When this is in, everything's going to be here in the center and hopefully center between the two wheels if we did everything right. So I think it's going to work out really good. So you could probably try to back in to get everything to work. Do it from the tractor. First time here, I'm just going to set it down to make sure I'm lined up good. Even with a heavy hitch one, even with a heavy hitch one, you have to get off and slide it in the receiver, lock it in before you can drop everything off. So the fact that I have to get off the tractor to potentially lower this is not, to me, that's not a big inconvenience. Same thing would happen if I bought the one from Heavy Hitch, but like I said, I like making things, so let me see how this thing works. Gonna lower it slow, make sure everything's gonna line up good. Looks like it's gonna be pretty much centered over there. Pull in just a little bit. There we go. Got all the weight off it. There you have it. I guess it works. Seems to be pretty easy. I mean, again, it's Harbor Freight. Probably have some better casters on there, but I don't see it. I'm trying to tip it over, pushing. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably push it over, but I don't think it's going to fall over accidentally. So, pretty happy with how this turned out. The weights are sitting good. You see some of these are lined up. They're sitting on there fairly well. These two inside ones kind of hang down, which is fine. I don't want to catch that, but all in all, pretty happy with the cart. I'll try to post the exact dimensions of all the wood in the comments for the video. I don't think, if you were going to buy one, I think you'd only need, I think you could get away with one 8-foot 2x6, an 8-foot 2x4, and the 4x4 would be the most expensive thing. But if you didn't want to buy a 4x4, you could take two 2x4s and a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, sandwich it between them, and put them on their ends. You wouldn't even have to buy a, if you have a piece of 1/2-inch plywood laying around, you wouldn't even have to buy the 4x4. So, but I'll try to get all that links posted in the end. I'm pretty happy with this. Again, it could roll a little better. It might be a little bit easier, but it's a lot better than what I was doing before, which is dropping it on cinder blocks and couldn't do anything with it. So at least now I can drop it out of the way. I can slide it out here in the middle when I go to pick it up with the tractor. But I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Hopefully this helps you. If you like making stuff like I do, leave a comment below. Let me know if you tried it. If you have any tips on how to improve it, I'd love to hear that too. Hope you all have a good day. God bless.